If you want a good board, you get it from a good shaper. For me, what I want to do in kiting is I just want to ride a wave like I do surfing.
Some of the best days kite surfing are often in really light winds because you get super clean faces on the waves. I've got one technique that I'm going to share with you now that I use a lot that helps me whip bigger kites into the waves so that you can get some really good down the line momentum with the kite. This particular technique I call the figure 8 whip in technique. Ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to create some apparent wind with the kite to whip you into the wave before you actually start riding the wave, so then it's in the optimal position for you to tear the wave up and not have to worry about the kite. First up, what I try and do is catch the wave as far out the back as possible. It's all about visualising what the wave's going to do so you can position your kite in the perfect spot to be able to ride it. Essentially what I've done here is I've ridden the wave all the way in, I've got myself in position, I'm sitting on the swell at the moment and I'm looking down the line going, okay, that's where I need to be. So I'm keeping my kite really low like I would be tacking upwind. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the kite really hard back the other way while I'm still moving forward. And then I'm going to turn it really hard back the other way, but send the leading edge of the kite directly down the line of the wave in the direction that I want to go. For this particular technique to work, and actually any technique for that matter, when you're turning the kite while you're riding the wave, you always need to turn the kite before you turn your board. You'll see at this point, I'm still edging pretty much upwind. I've initiated my turn with the kite. Once I've got it turned and heading back in the other direction, that's where I'm going to start to follow it. But I'm still going to hold quite a tight edge. Obviously, the more edge you can hold and the more tension you can keep in the kite, the more responsive the kite's going to be. And that's really important, especially when you're talking about light wind kiting on big kites. And this is where the figure 8 technique really comes into its own. Basically, I'm heading in and I've got the kite heading out at this point. I'm trying to create as much tension as possible between myself and the kite so I can whip the kite really hard around. Basically, I'm going to be doing a pivot turn with the kite, and then what I want to get out of that pivot turn is I want the kite to be heading down the line in exactly the same direction that I want to go. If I've done this correctly, all I need to do after that is subtle adjustments, moving it up and down as I do turns down the line. Just before the last part of this figure 8 technique, I'm still hooked in. The good thing about staying hooked in for the first part of this technique is that if you do turn your kite too big or too much, it gives you the opportunity to sheet in or out. Once I've come back over and I've sent the kite in the same direction that I'm going and I've got it in the perfect position, that's where I'm going to unhook. You'll actually see my kite sort of flare open and start moving down the line when I unhook. I'm doing this right when I start my first bottom turn. What you don't want to do at this point is create too much tension between you and the kite, because what's going to happen is it's going to power up the kite and then the kite's going to want to shoot back up into the wind window. So if you are getting too much tension, you need to ride towards your kite a little bit. Now at this point, I've completely finished the figure 8 technique. I've sent the kite in the direction that I want to go, and all I need to do now is subtle adjustments, moving it up and down when I do bottom turn, top turn combinations. So there's a couple of really key techniques with doing this figure 8 whip in. First one is, don't be hard on yourself. It's actually really hard to learn, and it takes time and it takes practice. And I still go out there some days and do 4 or 5 of them and they work perfect, and then I'll do one and it'll go completely wrong. It's all about the timing. So just go easy on yourself and just keep trying, because once you nail it, is such a helpful technique to whip yourself into waves when the wind's really light. Second thing is, make sure you turn your kite before you turn your board. If you don't, what's going to happen is your kite's going to fall out of the sky, or you're not going to have any responsiveness in your kite because your lines are going to be slack. Third thing is, it's all about how big your turns are with the kite. So for example, if you do really big turns, that's going to whip you down the line a lot faster. The smaller turns you do, the less speed you're going to have to whip you down the line. So it really depends on the wind strength and the wind direction. You need to play with that a little bit. It also depends on whether the wave's a really long wave or a really short wave. But as long as you can master and get a grasp of the figure eight technique, then you should be able to use it in all conditions.